So it's 8:04. So I'm clearly not the ice technician expert you wanted to hear tonight, but I did want to just introduce Shawn and Lauren here, and thank everybody for attending. It looks like we've got a really good crowd already. We're up to 55. This is something we want to continue for. We want to have more sessions for arena clubs. We want to have more sessions for ice technicians of all kinds. So this is part of the ongoing education programming that we're going to put out.
And it all boils down to this: $2, a single 3-minute.
I just interested in that. Anyway, so with that, what I do want to say is the idea, the germination of this thing, it started with the Arena Club Working Group, who I also want to thank. That's headed up by Jane Sharp, who's on the call, and there's a number from the Arena Club Working Group on that. They've done a great job so far on generating new content that will be valuable to arena clubs. And I will, you'll hear me crack open a bottle of champagne when we get this content platform launched. Very close. Apple is our biggest problem right now, but when that happens, there'll be a lot of arena club content available there, and more of these kind of things. So thanks to the Arena Club Working Group for pushing us on that and bringing forward a lot of content themselves. And then I also want to thank Shawn Olesen, who's our USA Curling head ice technician, who many of you have seen making ice at our championships, whether it's in an arena or in a club. And we're thrilled to have him here. And if you have seen his crews, you'll see Lauren Rich on his crews a lot. So Lauren is originally, her arena ice background is she started curling at Silicon Valley and got interested in ice making there, and now is at the Evergreen Club in Portland, where they have I think like a predominantly female ice crew, Lauren, which I'm excited about. But Lauren, I know from, if you know Shawn, he's a straight shooter, and he's always speaks so highly of Lauren, and that's a ringing endorsement from Shawn Olesen. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to both of them. I do have a board meeting that I'm going to bounce to. Otherwise, I'd like to stay and learn a bit more, but I'd probably do more harm than good as an ice tech. So Lauren and Shawn, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dean. And thanks everybody for spending your evening with us. There's a lot better things in the summertime people like to do than listen to me talk about ice, but this is what you get. Like Dean said, Lauren's done all of the work on this. I'm definitely riding her coattails. She's been working really hard with the arena working group. It's been something that we need to tackle, and I think this is like Dean said, a great step forward with miles to go. But the more we can get curlers playing on good ice, the better off we're going to be. So like tonight's going to be, we'll throw some topics out, try and add a little hopefully helpful information. And the way I like to do things is, as we're going, you can either type questions or raise your hands. Lauren will be monitoring that stuff, and we'll answer questions as we go, because on most of the meetings I'm involved with, people have a million questions and want to get to it. But this hopefully will lead to more meetings, and we can keep moving forward for everybody. So with that going, we'll go to the next slide, or back one, even better. So what makes good curling ice? The easiest quick answer is flat level ice. It allows the stones to be played all over the sheet. It doesn't hamper the skip's ability to call a shot. If you've got it going right and curling the right amount, you can call any shot anywhere on the sheet and be confident that the stones will travel consistently. In a lot of arena situations, that isn't the case. And we'll get into all these things later, but between willingness and abilities, you just don't get the time to produce the ice you'd like to play on if you're in certain situations. So we're going to try and find maybe some shortcuts to, a little better play for league play. If you have some time in these arena settings, it does work better. They work with you and get you going a little better. But like on this slide, we're talking about how much is too much differential. Even 1/8 of an inch is a lot, but you can still play. But you get to points where it gets so far out of whack, you're playing negative ice, or you're almost throwing at a target on the next sheet to get a rock in play. It's not always the funnest, but sometimes that's what you get. It's hard to attract new people when they're not having the success. They're watching slams or the Olympics or something. They're seeing a different game than what they play on Tuesday nights at the arena. So, and the goal is to get everybody playing on the same stuff. So, and then just some things on the bottom here. The smooth, clean ice is best for consistency. The skate marks, the ZAM marks, all that stuff on even a flat sheet of ice is still going to give you problems because you're going to get picks or rocks going the wrong way. If you're not cleaning up well, hopefully you're doing a dry cut after the ZAM. Once they filled in the skate marks, if they're not cleaning up all that snow, that's extra steps in your setup, running around with a brush or a mop. Every step you do in your setup takes away time from play, and you're probably spending a lot of money for that time. So, but it's things you have to do to make it right and make it safe. So, Lauren, if you want to pop in, this example is an actual sheet from a spiel you worked on. Or
This
is that in the
is
club?
no, this is just our Silicon Valley did surveying before their Bonspiel. So this is probably about a month or so before their Bonspiel, I think, is where I got this particular setup from. So
Yep.
they're able to survey the ice and work with the Zamboni driver and the rink staff ahead of the Bonspiel to kind of help, fill in the low points with flooding and then bring up, and then cut down the high points with the ZAM. So
Yeah, and those are some big differences, from spot to spot. Like she said, that was well before the spiel, which ideally you can work with them and get it going that way. But we're going to also talk about trying from a week to week basis, possible some things you could ask for, or try and improve practices at the arena to make it better for everybody, including the arena. So.
do we have anyone here who's from an arena and not a curler themselves? I know some clubs have talked about wanting to invite some rink staff to this. Okay.
I mean, this is Nathan Wendell. I am a curler at the Exarban Curling Club, but I'm also the lead ice maker for Baxter Arena.
Oh, nice.
So Shawn, I wanted to make sure that I jumped on and got a chance to say hi.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's been a while since we've seen each other, but I was excited to see what you guys had to say.
No, nothing but good for Baxter. That's always a great place when we get to go there. So you guys would have been, whether you're here or not, you guys would have been an example of somewhere that does it right.
Well, it's definitely a difference between that main ice and our community sheet, which hosts our curling club.
Sure.
So, I mean, I guess that's where I'm hoping to learn a little bit more. We actually just did a survey of our slab because we were seeing some irregularities that weren't adding up, and we're seeing basically an inverse bowl of our concrete slab. So I'm basically just trying to create a plan to build up some ice in the appropriate areas and keep ice thinner in the higher spots so that we can try to get that levelness.
Perfect. Yeah, that's actually one of the slides we'll talk about. Now that I know you're here, I'll probably pick on you when we get to it. So
Look forward to it. All right,
Beauty.
I'll let you go.
Okay. So where we're at now, so the tolerances, you know, for the curling ice it's within a few thousands, right? Between a good rock, a straight rock, and a falling rock. It's tiny numbers, and it makes a huge difference. Where sometimes we go into an arena, you know, I've seen them literally inches off in the corners. But it doesn't hurt hockey. You know, they don't love it, but they can. It's just like curler reading a sheet of ice. They know in that corner that if they hit it there in a certain way, the puck's going to do a certain thing. For curling, it's unplayable, but it's actually an advantage for the home team if they know a few weird spots in their ice. So it's, you know, apples and oranges. To get their ice flat and level in a skating rink situation where there is, you know, some of these places, they go from 5 a.m. till midnight nearly every day, and they don't have time for the maintenance that it takes. It's just that simple. You know, even if they want to, that place is getting used so hard that it's a big task and a huge ask for them to get it that good. You know, they're bombing around with the Zamboni as quick as they can between rentals. You know, the skaters want it one way, the hockey kids want it one way. The curlers are in their ear trying to get it, you know, the way we need it. It's an uphill battle for them, and you know, the whole time they're trying to watch cost in most places. It's tough. So one of the things we'll talk about is kind of managing the time that you have bought from them and kind of selling them on the work you want them to do with the time you've rented, you know, and we'll get to that after a little bit too. But it's definitely, you know, you're not going to come in the night before you have curling and say, okay, we want it flat tomorrow. It takes a lot of time and work, and sometimes a change in their procedures and, you know, the way they think about things. So it's definitely as much people skills working with the management and the employees as it is just knowing what to do. There's some, you know, there's stories both good and bad of arenas working together. You know, they understand the economics of it, and they want to make things right. And there's other people that this is how we've done it, this is how we do it, and we're not changing, you know. So it's a big step. Here's the slide I was just talking about with Nathan. So there's, you know, besides flat level ice, you can get some pretty funky shapes out there. We did a championship a while back. I feel like it was kind of a combination of these three. That thing looked like a crumpled piece of paper to me. But we spent some extra time, some extra floods, a little bit of education, and we weren't ever super happy with it, but we got through it, and you know, a lot of the players are pretty happy with it at the end, and I still scratch my head on that one, but that's just a credit to the guys on our crew, because nobody gave up and everybody worked extra hard on that event, as we do all events. But we definitely made a silk purse out of a sow's ear for sure. So the first one is, the crown is high in the middle, edges are low. All these variations, could come from 100 things. But the quick, simple answer for an hour meeting, it's usually airflow or water when I have problems. And I'll be the first to admit I'm not an expert on running a ZAM or keeping a hockey rink flat and straight. But you kind of see some things. Here's the things we walk into, and here's what we ask for. But say there's, for whatever reason, they really cut the edges hard because they're trying not to build up the edge. You can end up with the edges low and the middle high. So you gotta, spend some time maybe with the figure eights or just bombing up and down the middle, hitting certain spots. Maybe extra flood before we start. They've been in places where it's just a warm environment and they can't keep really good ice on the edges. Between the airflow and just the temperature itself, the ambient temperature, it just eats ice along the boards, and there's not a lot they can do. Like I said, they're busy. They don't have time for the extra flooding, and if they're cutting the edge too hard, that's what you get. Dished is kind of the other way around. They're just maybe, and I don't want to throw stones, but maybe they're just bombing around the edge of the boards. They could run the valve a little better for the water. They don't turn it off and on and kind of fine tune it while they're going. They just jump on the sheet, run their circles, and jump off. As soon as it freezes, the next group comes. That's you take the edger out, you work on that a little bit, you cut her down, get it back to flat. It isn't too bad. Of course, extra flood, get the middle built up. This one here we call the saddle. It's just you got a little mix of everything. The place is, frankly, a mess. It's just a lot of cutting and a lot of floods, and hopefully you're there well ahead of time to get with them, put your heads together, make a plan, and they want to work with you. At the end of the day, in most of these places, they look at the bottom line. But a flat, consistent sheet of ice is going to be a lot easier to keep cool and maintain than one of these other examples where you've got thicker spots taking more energy to keep cold. Well, the whole while you got the thinner spots around them. You're just throwing money out the window, keeping the poor product frozen. So they will listen if you come at them with an approach. Usually you talk about people's pocketbooks, they'll perk up a little bit. But it is a little extra work, so you also need to make sure the staff is on your side. It's just a mix of everything. This kind of we've touched at a little bit. Can you guys jump in with questions? Because I'm sure nobody wants an hour of me here. But like we talked about, the figure eight, before curling never hurts. That way you're not going to get your straight long runs. And it's, nothing fancy. It's just, pick a spot and they just zigzag back and forth at a 45 or so they can get that main body of the sheet, just hit it at a different angle. Hopefully you're cutting out some highs and, making things just a little better if you do have some ridging or whatever from earlier in the day. And again, the safety thing, make sure all the snow's cleaned up. Generally that falls back to us as the curlers. You get the big wide bristle broom, you're running that in front of the mop, and then you're you're putting your pebble on. Hopefully there's getting to be more arenas that have seen the benefits of having treated water. There's still a lot of them. We got frozen tap water. That's what you get. But even the small cost of treating that water to get some impurities out so it freezes easier, it's cheaper to keep that pad frozen. So that's one good thing. And if they don't take too much out, they still have the right hardness for their ice, so they can turn and do their skating, and it makes it that much better for the curling. You know, the curling ice is horrible skating ice because we have no impurities in it, and it's brittle and hard, and it's terrible to skate on. So, you know, the laser level, whether you put the expensive one on the Zamboni built into the facility, or just as simple as maybe a couple club members invest $500-600 in a nice transit that you can run around the sheet, show them a little bit of, like a map of what their sheet looks like. Hey, this is a little high, this is a little low. Over the next few weeks, could we work on that? Hopefully they're amenable to working together with you. Might lean on Lauren here with the tech, because I got another slide we can show you at the end. These are kind of throwbacks to what we did at the beginning. But on the one side here, there's not too bad a sheet of ice. It's a little high on the edges, not shocking, but in the middle where you play, it's not horrible. Could always be better, but we get what we get. And
so Shawn, if you could go back to that slide.
I might, if I click on the right thing, I can. I might have just done something.
Go up.
No, we're going the wrong way. Let's try this one. There it is.
Perfect.
This one?
No, one more.
The other one.
Yep, that one.
Here? Okay.
So Megan has a question in the chat. How do you suggest determining the shape of the ice in your arena? So I think since we're here, this is a good time to talk about this.
Yeah.
So to collect this data, a couple of volunteers went out with a measuring stick and a scope, basically like you would see a surveying scope that you would see on road, street, land surveying, and just collected data points at the back line across all the sheets, the hog lines across all the sheets, the blue line, and so on. And so when you process that data, it gives you something like this, so you can see where your high and low spots are. And then you can see that this, from this, with the color coding, you can see that this sheet is a little bit saddled.
More than a little in my book, but yeah. So you can see the reds are a little high on the ends and pointing towards the middle, and then it just dips away in the center. It could be 100 different reasons, who knows, but once you're in the arena consistently and can assess things, you can kind of work together with them to see what's what.
And you'll see, if you can't do surveys, I mean, it's a little less fine resolution of a method, but I mean, this will obviously show up in how you're playing as well. So you'll see the rocks are going towards the boards on both sides, but then kind of in the center, they're playing okay. And maybe once they're getting into the houses, they're doing a little bit squirrely things because the ice is getting a little bit more wacky there.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. We can blame the ice and blame the ice. We still gotta make the shots. But this, there's times that it's the ice's fault. We do what we can. Thing again here. It's getting better. Okay. So those, So, as the club, besides just the nuts and bolts here, it starts with, when you're introducing yourself and telling them who you are and that you want to curl in their arena, and set some fair expectations. And hopefully, if I had a nickel for every time I heard no problem at a site visit, I'm sure you guys run into the same thing. They just want you in there and gonna charge you, but at the same time, hopefully everybody's got a Nathan, and he can work with you, and even curl. I think that's how Kevin got going. He was the arena manager, and these crazy curler people showed up at his hockey rink, and next thing you know, he's one of the crazy curlers that does all kinds of this stuff. So it can work that way too, but set those expectations and let them know what you want. If they maybe a little education on our part on some of the things that they don't focus on or aren't big concerns to them, they can see where there is a benefit to that. They know all kind. They go to hockey meetings and they know how to run a sheet of ice, and you're not gonna second guess them or teach them their job there, but you can hopefully augment it with the things you know about curling ice and how that can work together to make the facility successful. Like I said before, after the dry cut, you want to run that brush and then a mop. If I'm walking in, everybody's going to know what works best in their facility, but on that kind of setup with possibly less than ideal water, no time to do a lot of prep. Some clubs have better stones than others. I'm going to just throw a bigger pebble just to hopefully maybe get above some of the bad spots. Hopefully that's going to last a little longer. If we're not using treated water underneath us, you're not going to just deteriorate your pebble as quick. And it's more for the rocks to grab to curl. Just that simple. Let's see. Then for the running rocks or nipping, everybody's got their preference. Everybody's got a great reason why they do what they do. If it was mine, I would want to have pretty good ice before I bothered running the nipper across it. I think with the time allotted, my first go-to would be run the rocks, mop it, get playing. But everybody knows their facility better than anybody else looking on the outside looking in. So it running the rocks does, it crushes the pebble and shatters it, and it's not as ideal as nipping, pebble on a flat level sheet of ice. But I don't know personally if it's out of shape too far. I don't feel like the nipper hits as many pebbles as you do running the rocks to get as many pebbles as possible in shape for play. But it takes experimentation on your part to see what works best in your facility. Had the question the other day from somebody, well, should we have a scraper? I said, well, that chunk of money could go towards a lot of things than trying to scrape, 1/8-inch Zamboni marks and skate marks out of a sheet that you'll never get done in the 30, 45 minutes, 20 minutes, however much time you get at your facility to get ready. Is it a good thing for a spiel if you have 3-4 days to get things ready and do some flooding? Absolutely. That's just an economic question for each club to decide. But
We've got another, quick question in the chat. When you do a single flood on a 4 sheet, How much correction do you expect to see, and how long does it take before you go to another flood?
I like to put a lot of light floods. I feel like you can build faster doing quick light floods and then maybe one or two big ones at the end. And it's just a matter of how much horsepower you got. If you can crank it down and freeze them in 2 hours, you flood every 2 hours. But put that flood on, let it get back to temperature, and then flood again. Is that? I can't see the question, so I'm just kind of.
Yeah. So do you have, so when we were flooding at Silicon Valley, kind of the idea that we were expecting that we would be able to bring up the low spots by about 1/10 of an inch with each of our floods. Does that seem reasonable?
Sure, I've never done the math on
Okay.
what a 100-gallon flood out, but yeah, you know how much water you're putting on. There's people that have, I don't know. It's honestly, I've never figured it out. I just put on 100 gallons, let it freeze.
Per sheet.
Per sheet, yeah, sorry. But I like 80 or 100 gallons a sheet, bang it on. If it's a little lumpy, bumpy, it'll catch up when we do the big floods. Flooding the arena sheet like that, we've gone into a out of whack place. John's been on a sheet for 2 hours, and he's walking through puddles at the middle face-off circles, and the water's running away from him in the corners. It just, whatever shape that place is in will tell you how much you need to flood. You watch what the water does. Hopefully it's all staying in front of you because they've done the legwork ahead of time to keep it fairly level. But
Can I
every
say
place is a little
something?
different.
And Shawn, can I say something? And tell me what you think about that. You hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mick. Good to see you.
Okay. First of all, we're talking about flooding an arena, and I think we have to remember that arena doesn't have a dividers between sheets of ice, and it's going to take much, much longer to flood arena. And another suggestion, to be careful about flooding arena, that if we have an uneven ice, all that water gonna run to the deep spots, and let's say have a ½ inch or even 3/4 of inch of water standing there, and gonna be almost nothing on the top of the shallow areas. So I would say if we're talking about leveling the arena, we have to focus more on cutting ice and less on the flooding ice. It's more efficient and faster way to to level it, and flooding takes much more time. What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. I would rather, I'm kind of coming from the point of it's almost ready and we're flooding, but definitely it's a lot easier to cut off those high spots and get it close so you can have a manageable flood to put on. And even then, you're going to run into those low spots, and the water might run away from you on a high spot, but once that freezes, hit it again, it's a little better. If you got to hit it a third time, it's a little better. It definitely makes a difference. And like you said, that whole sheet in a hockey rink, you're only playing on 150 feet of the 200. Once you get to those ends, it's not, excuse me, you're not near as fussy on what's happening back there. You might stop a little short or really fill a low spot. You're not concerned if there's still a puddle back by the back wall. You might start again because your curling area is ready to go again. But and this kind of a worst case scenario. Hopefully things are in pretty good shape. 1 or 2 quick floods will get the playing surface in good way to start on.
So there's another question asking, can the Zamboni add more water in areas during the pregame cut, say if your ice is dished?
Yep, you know, and that's part of why it got dished, in my opinion, that they're not maybe closing that valve when they go around. They slow down naturally to go around the corner, but they leave the same amount of water coming out the back. That's kind of how that can build up one way. You know, obviously there could be airflow coming off the scoreboard, eating away the middle. That's why it's dished without knowing. But I try not to be the guy that, you know, blaming the Zam guy all the time, because I hate when curlers blame the ice guy all the time. But
As a Zam guy, can I throw something in?
absolutely.
So naturally, I've seen a lot of drivers in my day, and with the higher ice that you see with that dished surface, drivers have a tendency to drive slower around the boards, so they're going to add more water.
Yep.
And then once they're free and they're going down that center strip, their water's probably open, but they're gunning it.
They're giving it. Yep.
And they're just flying down. So it's a matter of finding that consistent speed and finding ice crews who are looking for operators and not Zamboni drivers, because the driver's just going to go out there and drive the machine, and the operator's going to try to, you know, make those adjustments that need to be made.
Nate, I appreciate you saying that and not making me say it, because
Hey,
it sounds worse for me saying it.
I'm more than happy to say it.
Yeah.
I'm an arena ice technician.
Yeah.
That's my experience.
Yeah, no, there's definitely Zam drivers and there's ice makers, and it's the guys that know how to run that Zam well are freaking artists, and they do a great job. And then there's other guys that run it in a circle between hockey skates. So
Can I ask Zamboni guy if he can give us a number? I believe Zamboni have only 100-gallon tank, right? Is that correct?
Approximately 195.
Okay, 195, 200 gallons of tank. And I believe if we will think about that number is very low. Try to flood something with Zamboni, it's going to be very, very minimal effect. Would you agree?
Yeah, so the average number that they're looking at is approximately 1/64th of an inch is your variation in one resurface. And that's what you can shave off and what you can approximately build in a perfect world.
yeah, so I mean that's pretty minimal. If you got a quarter or half an inch to cut off of a hump, that's a lot of times across there with the Zam, and that's really cutting hard, filling that snow bucket. And if you got to flood something that deep, I mean, you got to get the hose out. You can't just cruise across it a couple times with the Zam and think you're doing any good. It's just it's a long, slow process, and it, you know, basically has got to start every year with the install and hopefully, you know, good maintenance practice. And that's what you're wanting to ask your arena staff and management. So
Scott Sheets has his hand up. Scott, do you want to ask your question? Scott, if you're talking, you're muted. Okay, we'll come back and try that again. Go ahead, Shawn.
Yep, try again or type it in, whichever. You know, and then if you got questions on anything, just jump in, but we'll keep moving on the slides and circle back if there's more questions. You know, for day-to-day stuff, what we can do, you know, rock storage, store them somewhere close in a basically dry cooler. if you got a temperature controlled cooler, great. I've seen them stacked under plastic along the edges of the boards. I've seen them, in chest freezers full of frost and ungodly. One place had them on some nice racks. They'd roll them to a cooler they had bought from a grocery store. Just whatever your situation allows for the best possible handling of those stones, because that's your biggest asset as a club, is your stones and your ice, and you're renting ice. So it circles back to your rocks, and you're doing the best you can with them. Like we talked about a little earlier, it could be, if hopefully you got a member in every trade, because that makes a lot better curling club, I think. But if you got somebody that can get a hold of a good transit, so you can at least offer to help survey the ice, and if they don't want any help, maybe spend a little bit of your rented time to go ahead and do it yourself. Take that map to them when you want to talk to them. Show them why you're thinking what you're thinking. We can make this better for everybody if it's a little flatter, and it'll obviously better for us, and it'll save you some money. If the place is wanting to get a laser level for the ZAM, maybe they're number crunchers too. What could we do? Maybe we could do some sort of fundraising or find a grant together to put a good investment in some pricey equipment that's going to make it better for everybody. I said I was going to cover something else earlier, and it had to do with this. You remember, Lauren? Talking with the arena. It's only going to help them if you can show them what you're working together on. But we were talking about, this is where I kick in and Lauren jumps in.
I don't remember. The only thing that I heard was that you wanted to talk about the shapes when Nate was talking about having dish ice. But
yep, and that's good. No, we're good. Did
Scott got his mic to work, so
beauty? Yeah, let's let her buck.
Scott, we still can't hear you.
I'm
Still
not
can't
hearing it.
Okay. So maybe Scott, if you can just go ahead and put your question in the chat, and then we'll keep going through the chat questions. Lisa says, our ice is never the same week to week, always different problems on different sheets. Any ideas for tips or best practices when we never know what we're going to get?
I think it comes back to trying to work with them to get their maintenance practices a little more consistent, which, without being in the building and seeing how things work is a big ask. But that, I remember what I was going to get to, is the time allotted in the Zamboni cuts. Nate, you stop me if I'm wrong. So they're renting by the hour. This is one example. They rent by the hour, and we're going to do a cut before you skate. You've got the ice for an hour, and then you get off. We cut for the next group. Curlers generally rent 2 to 3 hours. And in a lot of these situations, they'll do a cut, maybe a dry cut, drive away, you never see them again. Kevin had a formula of, like all these minutes, so, but there was like 30 or 40 minutes of cutting that would go for these 1 hour rentals. And if you could show them that, okay, we're buying 3 hours a time, so technically that's 3 cuts you're going to do, You don't have to cut it when we're done because we're not beating it up. Is why we figure we should get 3 cuts because the skaters can come out and go as soon as we get our stuff out of the way. So if we could take that 30 or 40 minutes of cutting time, work on some problem spots that we know are there, and then do a nice job of a dry cut before we take off. That's one thing that always stuck with me, would be a huge selling point to make the curling better, even if the arena wasn't changing anything they do. That was just one point I wanted to make. That could help the inconsistency that you're asking about, with the extra time cutting. Otherwise, it's kind of monitor conditions. You can't see much while they're skating, and it could be who knows how many things, why it changes from week to week, whether it's environmental or their practices or what, or if it changes who's on before you each time, maybe that's got something to do with it. It'd be hard to guess without digging a little deeper, but I did want to make that point about the extra time cutting if they're up for listening to that conversation. Did Scott have any luck getting through to you, Lauren?
No, I haven't heard him or seen his question. So I have another question that you mentioned, that it could be 100 different issues that are causing all of the wacky ice that you can get in an arena, and that curlers tend to know the facility better than you would, not having been there and not playing on that ice all the time. But I think a lot of people on this call are probably here because they don't necessarily know what the
Sure.
issues could be. Do you have some common first places to look, or what are common issues that can be addressed and what can't be addressed, things that you see more often than not?
Say I've never been there before. We're going on a site visit for whatever. The first thing I look at is the yellow kick plate. The screws that hold that on, they're all even all the way around the rink. They screw into the same, little piece of tubing. So those are pretty much level around there. One thing I look for, like in front of the bench, you can see, they're either half an inch or an inch above the ice. Then as you migrate towards the corners, like Nate was talking about, they slow down. They don't change the water from when they're going fast. When they're going straight, that water piles up, for lack of a better term, and that ice gets high there. You'll see those screws disappear. That tells me corners are high, corners are low. At least on the edge, you can see how flat it is. It's hard to guess how it migrates through the sheet of ice until you play it. That's a quick tell of how things are going. As I'm walking around, I'm just feeling the air. Is there air blowing here, air blowing there? Do you see, if you can see some signs of the air hitting the ice in weird spots, it's a little shiny or feels a little slippery here or there. Frost in one spot, not in another spot. Just a bunch of different things. How it feels underfoot, if it's kind of greasy because the water's not treated, or greasy because air's hitting it. There's just those are the quick, instant things I can think of. Before you watch them cut it, you see where it's cutting hard, not cutting much. Just depends on how much time you have. See if we got more slides here. Oh, did it again.
I think that was it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. We got a few minutes left. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it creates some more questions, because that's kind of the goal, is to get everybody thinking and what they can do better in their club. Hopefully we're helping with that. If you do have questions that didn't get answered or weren't comfortable asking, whatever, get a hold of me, get a hold of Lauren, or anybody, just, I always tell everybody, don't ask just me, ask 10 people. If you get eight answers the same, that's probably the right answer. If I tell you to do something stupid, listen to the 8 smart guys. Or ladies, sorry, Lauren. I teased Lauren. But yeah, just keep your network big and ask lots of questions to a lot of people. I'll if I get questions from people, we can do this again sometime. I would like to focus it more on things that everybody in the group is concerned with than me just picking a topic and talking to you. But I think this will be good and moving forward as we work together. We can learn from everybody's experience and mistakes and successes and make it better for everybody. But it's the unfortunate thing is it's not a quick fix in that situation, and I wish it was. But we would always remind each other when we wanted to do something easy is there's no shortcuts in good ice. It just takes time, and you got to do it the hard way sometimes. Did anybody else pop up?
Yeah, so somebody has asked or Marty has asked, what is the optimal ice temperature for arena curling ice?
I love to tell you how much it depends. No, it same thing. If everybody went on vacation and I walked in, I'm going to try for 23, 24 degrees to start with and let it play out from there, see how it goes.
And that's at the surface and not
Ice
the ice
surface
pad,
temp.
right?
Yeah, ice surface temp. And that varies depending on a lot of things, but just walking in, I like 23, 24 degrees. You can get a little warmer, but you don't want it to get too warm and your pebble goes away and you run the risk of getting slippery and people falling. So Garrett had his hand up. I saw that.
Garrett, you're muted.
Oh, you're muted now.
Sorry, I was looking to see if there's anything I could do to help him unmute. He asked in the chat, he asked, could you speak to using the laser, I guess the laser level for the Zamboni?
Yeah, we were at a spot, they had, I don't know, 3 or 4 rinks, and then they would just in one laser level, and then there's a sensor in each rink. So depending on which arena, they were working on, they would just put it on that ZAM. That was probably the best ice we'd ever started on. It flat as a pancake. It was nice. And they had this event coming. They knew it was coming. They put the laser on that machine for, it's already pretty good because that's their standard practice. But then they really fine tuned it the last couple of weeks. It stayed in that rink. If it's 1 or 2 rink facility and they get one level for the whole place, I mean, that'll be some killer ice. And again, I don't know how quick the payback will be, but there's going to be some cost savings to them through their utilities that'll come back, and they have to decide how fast, if that's fast enough payback for that investment. Like I said, if you can help them find some grants or find a grant for your club that would pay for that kind of infrastructure, awesome. if you have the right members that could help write checks for stuff like that, that's great, you know. But, you know, you can't go to the well all the time for everything, so. But the laser levels on the Zambonis work, and they do a great job. In, you know, in the right hands, they make good flat ice, and the people that have them love them. I could put you in touch with those people if you're trying to sell that to your rink. We could go from there for sure.
I'm helping out with a club that is thinking about getting one. And as Mikkel said earlier, most of the operators are, you know, high school kids or, you know,
Yep.
someone recently out of high school. So,
Sure.
you know, trying to get, you know, 4 different people that, you know,
Yep.
based on the luck of the draw, you get a different person every time. Trying to
Sure.
get all those people up to speed using something like the laser level doesn't sound like something that, you know, happens quick.
Actually,
Yeah.
the laser,
But that takes a
our,
lot of
our
that out of their
experience at our
hands.
rink
Yeah.
is that the laser kind of dumbs it down for your Zam drivers.
Yeah.
It kind of evens things out, so they, you know, it kind of fixes some of their inexperience.
They kind
So-
of hit the button and set it and forget
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
That's spot on. The laser level is a great way to dummy proof an inexperienced driver. Somebody that's putting down too much water in certain areas, the previous resurface, the machine is then going to automatically shave the next resurface.
So you're still going to get Zamboni runs. You're still going to have falls within sheets, but you're going to hopefully avoid the big bowling and dishing issues.
Nathan, correct me if I'm wrong. I was told that laser-driven Zamboni cannot fix the bad ice. They can help maintain the level ice. If you have a too much difference, let's say half inch or more, laser level Zamboni not going to do anything about that.
Right. But it's a good maintenance tool.
Yep, exactly.
You gotta have them. If they're making that investment, they're gonna take the time.
You're gonna
to
rebuild
maintain
the
it.
sheet at that point and start fresh usually.
Yeah, and I've only had 2 sheets of ice that I got to use the laser, and you know, the rink there took very good care of those sheets of ice. They took very good care of the machines. But yeah, it's definitely not a cure-all, but it is a very good tool to help at least bring you to a closer position that you want to be.
Okay.
Yeah, when they first installed the laser at our rink, they didn't take the ice down and bring it back up, and it did take a couple of months to get it back to level because we were playing in a big bowl, and it did take a while to fix that, but it did eventually get it better. And then when they rebuilt the ice from there, it was pretty good from then on.
What is the price of the laser level equipment for Zamboni? And is there any market availability for used ones? Anybody knows?
I think ours was about $20K 6 years ago.
That's not cheap.
I put in an estimate or a request for an estimate about 3 years ago, and with installation and product and everything, I might be wrong. I thought it was running very close to 40. I haven't looked at that estimate in about 2 years. And I was also looking at 2 machines, so it could have been 20. But yeah, it's an investment for sure.
Keep hitting the button. Oh, yeah, so we're kind of burnt up our time here, but I'm glad that we're getting some stuff stoked up here. I want to thank everybody again for spending your evening with us. And I really appreciate all the questions, because that makes it better for everybody else to listen to good questions and me talk. If you have any more questions, please let us know so we can either answer them or get you in touch with somebody who has a good answer. And I super appreciate you being here. And I think this is showing us that we need to do this more often and keep things moving. So if we're all caught up here, I think we'll say thanks, and looking forward to hearing from you. And we will, in my mind, I would like to make this next one more focused on the questions that come up in the next couple days, so we can really tailor it to people's wants and needs than us picking the subject. So I guess with that, I'll say thank you, unless Lauren or anybody else has anything.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming out. I hope everybody got something out of this, and hopefully we can do some more good things like this in the future. Let us know if you have specific questions or if you have ideas for topics for additional discussion. Our email addresses are on the slide. I'll go ahead and post the slides probably sometime tomorrow, and I've been taking some notes on what questions have been asked and what answers have been given, and so I'll try to get that in a more legible form, and then I'll try to get that on the website tomorrow as well.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. You have a good night.